Hi class, I wanted to post a quick video for you regarding your Chapter 2 grader project. As you move through the class, remember that more often than not, we will cover this stuff in lab and in lecture before your grader project is due. This is an exception as it's the beginning of the semester and our Monday-Friday class has not lent itself to be very helpful with this. So we haven't had time to get really to these VLOOKUPs, if functions, and payment functions necessarily. So I felt like this particular grader might be a little difficult for you. So I wanted to post a quick video to show you the easiest way and the most logical way to get this done. So hopefully you find this helpful. Really quickly, this is your Chapter 2 grader assignment, and I wanted to point out the ones that I think might give you the most difficulty. So if you look at your instructions, and again, Pearson gives you step-by-step instructions down to telling you which cell to click in, which, as you notice from lab today, I won't do. So for testing purposes in this course, this isn't the right way to study, but I know it's a good way to get your feet wet and get exposed to some of these concepts. So the homework's important, but doesn't resemble the test. So just bear that in mind. The second thing that you need to do, the first one being open it and save it with your name or however it has you save it. I always save it with my name in the title before I turn it back in. But the second thing that it asks you is to insert a vertical lookup function in C5 to display the basic annual membership cost for the first client. So I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm actually going to work a little bit ahead of this file and show you how to copy it down and all that stuff so that you understand what's happening in this file. But let's open the grader project. It looks like this. So the question asked us to insert a VLOOKUP or a vertical lookup in cell C5. C5 is here, and what the question is asking us is to create a lookup function that is going to look up this particular client in row 5, their type of membership, and put the cost of that membership here. Now, you'll notice we only have 9 different individuals that are on this sheet. So we could manually go down through here and say a deluxe membership is $575. We could put $575 here. The individual membership $300, family $1,500, so on and so forth. And we could do that manually for these 9 clients, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But as you'll notice when you get out into the business world and as you progress through this class, we're going to have more than 9. And so I don't want you spending your time manually keying in things, and that's what Excel is good for. And that's what this VLOOKUP and a lot of our lookup functions are good for. So if we had a list of 9,000 clients or 100,000 clients, we wouldn't want to look all those up. So we use what's called a vertical lookup. It's called a vertical lookup because our data goes down a list and not across. If deluxe, family, individual went this way, it would be what we call an H lookup, and we'll work with that some coming up as well. But this particular one is a VLOOKUP. So to get started with this, I want to point out a couple things. In Excel, if I type equals and start typing VLOOKUP, and I get this VLOOKUP function, your Excel is going to tell you what the arguments are. Now, if your Excel doesn't tell you what the arguments are, that's a whole different beast and you need to come see me. But Excel is going to tell you what arguments have to be put in the VLOOKUP function. Now, that's all well and good when you're an Excel wizard like I am and you've been doing this for years. I know what all these arguments mean. You may or may not know. So I want to show you something else that you can do to make this easier for yourself if you don't know what these mean. The first thing you could do is open my slide decks because I've gone to great pains to spell them out for you in the slide decks. And if you look back in the slides that we use in lecture, it has all the definitions of what a lookup value is, what a table array is, what a column index number is. All that's in your slides on the VLOOKUP slide, and that's why I've put it in there for you. But Excel has this built in for you as well. So you can go to the Formulas tab and click on this Insert Function button. When you click on the Insert Function button, you can search for VLOOKUP. Now, VLOOKUP is going to be way down here at the end because they're in alphabetical order on my machine. Normally, it would show up in my most recently used, but I haven't been using this lately for this purpose, so it's not up there. But when I get to VLOOKUP, I can double click on it, and you'll see it asks me for all the arguments here in this formula builder, and that's great. But down here is what I want to point out to you. Down here, and you have to expand your window. If your window's small, you won't be able to see it, so make sure you expand it all the way. But here's what all these arguments mean. The lookup value is the value to be found in the first column of the table. It can be a value, a reference, or a string. So the first one is lookup value. I'm going to close this because this isn't the way that I do it, but I want you to know that this is here. If you wanted to use this, you could just simply click in the box for the lookup value and click on the lookup value. Go to the next one for the table array and find it, and that's all well and good. You can do that this way. I'm just going to type it, but again, this is an option for you if you want. I'll explain that again in a second. So I'm going to go back to cell C5, and I'm going to type equals VLOOKUP, and my computer makes me type VLOOKUP all the way out and open my parentheses. Yours probably doesn't, so if you see VLOOKUP, you can always double click on it or highlight it and press tab. It does the same thing. Our first argument is lookup value, meaning what value do you want me to use for this particular cell to look up? So right now I'm looking for Andrew's membership cost. So I'm in row 5. My lookup value here, guys, is going to be deluxe. The reason my lookup value is deluxe is because I'm going to look down here in this little grid to find the cost for a deluxe membership. So deluxe is going to be my lookup value because it's what relates to Andrew's that is also in this lookup array. It's going to make more sense the more we do it, but bear with me for this time. Our lookup value is deluxe or cell B5. Our table array is going to be A18 to B20, meaning deluxe, family, individual, and the costs associated thereof. For the purposes of this grader project, you're not going to want to grab the headers. When we do it in real life, it doesn't matter. But again, remember, this is graded by a computer, so you want to do exactly what it wants, and it doesn't want you to have the headers in there. So I'm just going to grab the membership types for the table array. Now, we need to absolute reference these. If you don't yet understand what absolute reference means, it means as I copy and paste this formula or as I drag this formula down, it's the places that I want to freeze. So let's say as I drag this down in a minute and I look at Faust. Faust has an individual membership. I still want this lookup to look in this little grid right here for the individual membership. If I don't absolute reference as I drag it down, this box that I have highlighted, this array, is going to drag down as well, and it creates a mess. The next argument is column index number, meaning in this table array, which column do you want Excel to display when you're done with your formula? So I have column 1 and I have column 2. Well, my input is column 1. I want column 2 to be my index number, the one I want it to return. The value I want to see is not in column 1, but is in column 2, so I put a 2 here. The last argument that says range lookup is either a true or a false argument. 9 times out of 10, probably 99 times out of 100, in your career, you're going to use false because you're going to want an exact match, not an approximate match. We want an exact match. We want to know the deluxe price and only the deluxe price, so we'll put false as our argument. We'll close our parentheses and hit enter. So I should get 575, and I know that that's right. I can look right here and say deluxe membership is 575. I'm going to grab this green fill handle and drag this all the way down to show you that it works all the way down. If I double click on this cell at the bottom, it shows you that my lookup value is individual, and I'm still locked in this membership cost grid. Now, that's how you do a VLOOKUP. Very, very basic how you do it. Again, on your assignment, you have another VLOOKUP in step 6. The difference here is it's asking you for the amount of the down payment based on the type of membership. So this time, when you do it over here for down payment, when you do the VLOOKUP again, you're going to grab all of these for your table array, and you're going to return column 3 this time. You can't just highlight membership and down payment. You have to highlight a contiguous set. So you'll highlight all of 9 of these cells and then return column 3, but the same principle applies. So the next one that I want to point out is step number 4. So use an if function in cell E5 to calculate the annual total amount, which is the sum of the basic cost and the locker fees for those who rent a locker. For people who do not rent a locker, the annual cost is only the cost shown in column C. The locker column displays yes for clients who rent a locker and no for those who don't. So that's a lot of words to say some people rent a locker and some people don't. And whether or not people rent a locker is indicated by the yes or the no in this locker field. So all people who rent a locker are charged $75. It says it right here on our spreadsheet. All of them charge $75. So we need to know the annual total, which could be the cost plus the locker fee or just the cost. So we're going to do an if statement to calculate this. If is a logical test, is a logical function where I can say, if something is true, give me this value. If it's not true, give me some other value. So I have a logical test, and then I have a value of true and a value of false, and it works great here. Our logical test for this one is going to be if D5 equals yes. And I have to put yes in quotation marks because yes is a word. It's not a number. So if I want it to read text, I have to put it in quotation marks. So I'm going to say yes. If D5 equals yes, if that is true, I want the cost, and I want you to add the locker fee. Now again, the locker fee is down here. The cost is in relation to the row that I'm collecting data for, so that one doesn't have to be absolute reference. But this locker fee needs to be absolute reference. For those of you who don't know the hotkeys that I'm using on my keyboard, I'm on a Mac, so I'm hitting the FN key and the F4 key. FN, F4 to absolute reference. If you're on a PC, it's just F4. If you hit just F4 on a Mac, it does that, which is not helpful at all. So you have to hit the FN, F4. There's a few of you that probably still doesn't work for. For those who have a Mac that FN, F4 doesn't work, please try Command T. It will toggle those dollar signs. Can you put them up there by yourself? Absolutely you can, but that's the hard way, and why would you want to do that? So if this says yes, it's going to add the $575 to the $75, and that's great. If it doesn't say yes, or if it says no, it's going to just be the cost right here, just C5. So there's your if statement. If D5 equals yes, C5 plus B22 absolute referenced. If not, just C5. So good to go. And then I can again grab this green fill handle and drag it down to the bottom. The last one that I want to point out for you is this payment function, because we haven't really had a chance to talk about it, me and you, how this payment function works. So step 8 says insert the payment function in cell J5 to calculate the first client's monthly payment using the appropriate and relative absolute cell references. Copy the formulas down. Okay, so here we're going to have a monthly payment, and this monthly payment is dependent on all of these other cells. So I'm not going to show you how to do all of these other cells. Instead, I will just open my completed one and show you how I got to this. So while this opens for a second, I'm going to just delete this monthly payment so that I can show you how to do it again. But you can work through the totals and the down payments and all that stuff. I know you can. So we're going to focus on this monthly payment. We're going to say the monthly payment is equal to a PMT function. Now, a PMT function, payment function, is always going to return a negative value in Excel. Always going to return a negative value. We don't want it to return a negative value ever, almost. So we want it to be positive. So I'm always going to recommend you put a minus sign in front of a payment function. It will help you as you move forward. So the payment function has 3 arguments that you have to put in. Those are rate, number of periods, and present value. So we have to focus on rate, number of periods, and present value. In this class, we will ignore future value and type for a payment function. When you take finance classes, you won't be so lucky, or advanced accounting classes, to ignore those 2 types. But for now, we'll take the default, so we'll ignore those 2. Rate means that I need the rate in the time period that I make payments. So you can see this is a monthly payment. It says right here, monthly payment. And I have an interest rate that's 5.75. Guys, if I have an interest rate that's 5.75, it's a yearly interest rate. Monthly interest rates are not that high. When I give you this, it'll say APR rate, annual percentage rate, so that you know it's a whole year. But here, because it's 5.75, I know that that is a yearly interest rate. So I will deal with that. So we're going to absolute reference this interest rate. But we need to divide that interest rate by the number of periods in a year. So we're going to have the interest rate divided by 12. Now, in the real world, again, in lecture, in lab, in your exams, if you type rate divided by 12, I'm totally fine with that. The computer, when it grades your thing, is not totally fine with that. It wants you to absolute reference that 12. So again, this is where Pearson and I disagree, and where my grading is much more flexible than Pearson's. But when you're working on these graders, you got to do exactly what it says, and that's what it asks for. The number of periods here is the number of periods for each individual loan. So for hit this, it's going to be months of the year. so 12, and we're going to absolute reference that. And we're going to do it times the number of years that this person is a client. The F5, the number of years that Andrews is a client, does not have to be absolute reference because I want that to change as I move down. But so far, the rest of the stuff has to be absolute reference. The last argument that we need is present value. Here, the present value is the balance of the loan, the total minus the down payment. You're going to see it over and over again in this class. Total minus down payment is present value. That's just a finance function. So we're going to have B23 absolute reference divided by B24 absolute reference. That's our rate. Our number of payments is going to be B24 times the number of years in that specific person's contract, and then the present value is going to be I5. So you'll get that payment, you'll drag it down. If you get to, that's the totals row, so that's not helpful. If you forget to absolute reference something, you'll get errors down through here, and you can always double click on a cell to make sure that it's referencing what you think it is, so you can make sure that your absolute references haven't moved way down here, and that's why you're getting an error. So I hope you find this helpful. Again, this is just help for grader 2. I won't do this every week, but because we haven't had a chance to work on these skills, I wanted you to have something to work with. So I hope you find this helpful. If you have questions, feel free to email a TA or me, and good luck with your project. Not your project, but your grader. While I have you, I want to show you one more thing. So I'm going to log into Pearson. So Pearson is where you're going to turn in this grader project. And I didn't mean logic. I meant login. When I log into this, you're going to notice mine looks really different from yours. But I want to point out a couple things to you as you go to turn in this assignment. So as you turn in this assignment in Pearson, there's a couple places that I want you to make sure you know where to look. There's a couple things that aren't really as intuitive as I would like, but I thought I would go ahead and point them out. So when you click on your Pearson page, again, I have a lot of options that you don't have, but you go to assignment calendar to turn this in. And once you go to the assignment calendar to turn this in, you're going to click on the date where it's due. Again, it takes a million years to load, so try to be more patient than me. But you click on the date when this one's due. It happens to be due this Sunday, and I get Chapter 2 Grader Project. When I go to submit this, and you get up to 5 chances, so it's going to come up and it's going to ask me. When I want to choose a file, guys, and I want to, I'm just going to pick one. I'm not actually going to submit it, right? But I just want to pick one. When you click on a file and you have a selected file, remember that you have to hit this upload button. If you don't hit this upload button, you can't hit submit for grading. It causes an error. So I know it's counterintuitive. You selected it and then you have to upload it, but make sure that you push the upload button. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So I wanted to point that out to you. The next thing I wanted to point out to you is after you submit something. So you see both of mine have been passed. But after you submit something, you can click on these 3 vertical dots here and click on View Submissions. When you view your submissions, and this is what I want to point out, you can see your grades. So you'll notice that my grades they vary because I submitted a blank file here. And then I forgot a step when I submitted this one. I got a 97 or something on this one, so it would have counted as 100 in this class. But if you click on the view submission and you see that my total score was a 97, what I wanted to show you is if you scroll down in this window, eventually you'll get to what you missed. So you'll see these red down arrows. You'll see I got 7.7 points out of 10. I can click on this down arrow and it'll tell me exactly what I did wrong. So this tells me that I didn't fill in colors correctly because I didn't read all the directions. But Pearson is nice enough to tell you exactly what you got wrong. So if you get stuck, that's very helpful. You have 5 chances to get it all worked out. So I hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks.